Intuitive viewers, welcome, welcome. And I am very excited today. I have got a really interesting, intriguing, amazing guest. This is Christian Sundberg. Hi, Christian.
Hi.
Christian is the author of a new book called A Walk in the Physical. And his story is, I guess it's not unique because it is a story we've all it's happened to us all, but what is unique is that you have memory of it. He has memory of the pre-existence, of planning his life, coming to Earth, using his free will to determine his planning for the Earth. And he's going to share his story and all of the memories that he has of this amazing pre-existence. So Christian, please go ahead and share your story with us.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. So before I start, I just have to say that everything that I'm going to attempt to say is really beyond language. And there is no way that I can actually speak to this topic because words are form, they're symbols from our local world. And when we're human, we assume that the things of our world are all that there is. So we try to understand from the human vantage point. But our higher state, who we really are, the higher realms and our true nature, it just vastly transcends those symbols and the content of the earth experience. So I'm going to try to use some words, but I just have to make that disclaimer because it's not possible for anyone to simply say it's like this. It's just not how it is. It's just we're in a state of being right now that is highly constrained and in a very specific point of perspective, and who we truly are very vastly transcends that perspective. So I just want to say that first.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is hard to talk about because these memories do have a sequence, but they also all feel like they're happening all at once, like right now. So I'm going to speak about them in sequence, but it gets a little bit difficult to do that. Our local linear time is built. It's artificial. Higher time is more difficult to speak to from here. So long ago, before I had ever had any physical incarnations at all, I remember coming across a being who had been physical. And this being was so beautiful. I remember coming across him and being deeply moved by what I felt of him, about his nature, about who he really was. And I asked him, and again, this isn't words, it's telepathic communication on that side. I said something to the effect of, my goodness, like, look at you, like, what have you done? Like, how are you this? How are you feeling? And are you feeling everything that I feel that you're feeling? And he shared that he was. And it was so full of love and power and joy and expansiveness and capacity. And it was just beautiful. And so I asked him what he had done, and he shared with me that he had been physical. And he shared very, like, as an immediate sharing, this physical experience he had where he had suffered a physical ailment of some kind of pain or sickness. I don't know specifically what it was, but I remember reviewing this pain that he had gone through for years and how it just crushed him and pushed him so far in a certain direction, but how he had chosen to meet that experience with openness and acceptance, and he had integrated it, he had processed it and brought love to that experience. And in so doing, he had expanded in such a beautiful, incredible way. And I asked him, were you healed? Because I saw how much he had been damaged, physically damaged, right, and emotionally damaged. And he said yes. And he shared with me this depth of healing. I could feel how deep he had been healed. And I said, well, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. Like, I was so like, I'm going to do that. Like, I was just so like, oh my gosh, if that's possible. I will do anything to, not quite do anything, but I was just super inspired. And he said, okay, well then go talk to your guides. And he also kind of, and I'll just say this, he also kind of communicated at first, like, yeah, that's what they all say. and I said, no, I'm serious. And I remember him communicating it. It's difficult in a way that you've never known. Like it's difficult. It's very difficult in a new way. And at the time I was ignorant to how difficult it might be. So, okay. So then I lived many lives and I found him again later and shared with him some of what I had done. And I said something to the effect that, see, I'm doing this. I'm part way through this journey. And he was encouraging. Okay. So then I'm going to jump a bit. The majority of this pre-life memory is of a time that is somewhat immediately preceding this life right now.
Okay.
So I had taken a long break. I remember being in a state where it's like being on a long weekend and being reluctant to give it up. And I remember frolicking and like sailing and flying through this realm of gold and just reveling in the bliss of being and in the deep peace and relaxation of that, and doing certain activities that I'm not going to try to put words on from here, because I think that automatically does them a disservice to do so, because they're higher in nature, but creative activities and activities of communication with others. And I remember this guide coming to me over and over and saying, are you ready to go back yet? Are you ready to go back yet? And everyone, and just like putting him off, like, no, I'm not ready yet. No, I'm not ready yet. But he kept reminding me of my own intention. Like, are you ready now? See, you're doing this. Are you ready to go back? And finally saying, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go back. I'm ready for that deep challenge again. And I remember reviewing with him what I can only describe as my state, like who I was, who I had been. And it's really hard to describe this, but it's kind of like it's like, imagine, this is a really poor metaphor. Imagine if you looked at like a chart with like a graph, like with different, like a bar graph or something. I mean, this is super crude, but I reviewed through it, like all these kind of like qualities that I had experienced or that I had been and that I understood. It was about knowing them at a deep level of who I really was. But there was one that was like glaringly like, oh, I really need to do something about that. It was like the super deep fear that had vested me in a previous experience. And in this previous life, I had been overcome by this fear. And it led me down a path where I was a very damaging person. I was very hurtful to others. And by the end of that life, I ended up dying an agonizing, painful death because of the fear. The fear led me into a place that eventually I died physically in a painful way. And so I couldn't believe the depth of this fear. It was such a low vibration. It was so distant from source for me.
Right.
It was so incredibly, it was just almost unspeakably low vibration. And I was like, man, I mean, I remember reviewing it and knowing like, wow, if I can meet that and integrate that, I knew there would be an expansion of being possible, an expansion of myself and an expansion of all it is too, because we're all part of the whole. So I knew that it would be an incredible service actually, if I could meet this experience and fully integrate it and heal through that at that depth, because if I could do that, I knew the expansion would be so beautiful and incredible. And I knew, but even then I could see that it was so daunting that I remember asking, is it even possible? Like, like has any being in all of creation ever engaged successfully something this low vibration? And I was shown yes. And I was told, and you have all of time available to you to do so. You don't have to do it all at once. Like basically, don't fear not. This is all of time is given to you to do this. So I was super excited, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And because I just knew if it was possible, then I knew that I could do it. And it seems strange to me as a human to say that, because like here it's super hard. But from that perspective, I remember knowing, like, I knew my strength. I knew what we are, the immortal, unharmable, loving, powerful nature of what we are. And so I thought, then I'll do it. So they brought me a life for this purpose. And I reviewed that life and I accepted that life. And I accepted the veil. So for that life. Now, okay, so the veil is just a word we use, but this is the part that I really it's just at the forefront of my mind almost every day, because the sensation of accepting the veil is very extreme. For me, I experienced it like diving into a deep dark pool or something, and having this plummet in vibration. So I like to describe it like an amplifier, like a sound amplifier, like it makes a pitch like, and then you turn it down, and then you turn it down to the bottom, and then you keep going, and then you turn it down more and more and more and more and more and more, and then some more, and then more still. That's what it felt like in the body of my being, to come from that place of all connectedness and such bliss and total freedom, down, 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 down. Like it's just a breathtaking dive, like a plummet down into a place that felt comparatively like a vacuum, like a place that had like the vacuum of space or something. Like there's no heat there, there's no air, there's no, like, it just feels empty and simultaneously super dense, like being shoved inside of a small metal can or something like that.
Yeah.
So I went through this experience, and I was in the womb for this life. But within seconds, I reacted very strongly in fear, because, okay, so every life, I was aware, has a unique vibrational place, like a vibrational destination or point of perspective. And this life had a very, very super low vibrational perspective. And so, like, within moments of being there, I was like, I am not doing this. This is ridiculous. I am not doing this. This is so dark. I am not I don't feel like myself anymore. I'm not doing this. So I promptly mustered my might, my full strength, and I fought my way out. And I smoked the veil. I could feel the veil, and I basically pushed out past it and through it. And I was successful in doing so. But I had killed the fetus. I had killed the body that was to be mine. And so I had a life review for that super short life. And I became aware of how my fear, even though I had all these big good intentions, how my fear right at the beginning, before I was even born, how my fear had affected the mother. And I became aware that the mother was heaped in sorrow, and that because of her sorrow, hundreds of other people in ripples out from the mother were negatively impacted by my fear. And I mean, from that side, you know that all is well. There's actually there's no real problem. But I was also very disappointed in myself, and I just objectively could see it very clearly, like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. Like, I can't believe I have that much fear. It's really what the recognition was. Like, I'm not evolved in this way. Like I haven't integrated this experience yet. So I spent some time in a room that can best be described as a veil acceptance simulator, where it's like a pretend veil where you can, like, get in the pool metaphorically, and it's like being dunked under the water, and they put this mock veil over you, except in there you can cry uncle. You can say, like, I want out. This is too much. But so I remember doing that and practicing that, and I remember that the real thing is a lot more difficult than the simulator. To say that, because it was helpful, but it was nothing compared. I mean, not nothing, but it wasn't as extreme as the real veil. Okay, so I had wasted that first life opportunity, and so, but I still wanted to do this. I still had the same intention. So they brought me a second life, this life, and I reviewed it in great detail. And I knew that this life was not as appropriate as the first one would have been. Just like, I can't put a number on it or something. I said in one previous video where I shared this experience that life was like a 99%, and this one was like 86 or 87%, something like that. I'm just making up numbers. It's not like that, but it was kind of like that, where this life was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but it did offer it offered a good circumstance set and constraint set for my intention. I reviewed what can only be described as a vast flow chart of millions and millions of possibilities of how this life might unfold. and how and what it would be like to be me as Christian the human. It wasn't primarily, I mean, events were there, but it wasn't primarily about events. It was primarily, what would it feel like to be me in exactly this place and this place. And it was like if you took a tree and laid it on its side and you started at the trunk and it went out to branches. It was kind of like that, where there were high probabilities to start, and there were certain thick trunk branches that would very likely go all the way to the end, and there were some side branches that were far less likely. But it was millions of possibilities that I reviewed all at once, and it was not hard to do so. It was just, I reviewed it all within moments, and I was super excited. I knew that a trauma would likely befall me in my early 20s that would crush me and allow me to have the opportunity to re-experience this extremely low vibration fear. And I was super excited. So, which now, like I said, as a human, it's like, it gives the ego pause. The ego has,
Yeah.
but at the time I was super excited to do this. And so I remember there having to be a moment to accept, and I don't remember that moment. But I do remember then being in a period where I was basically waiting for the very beginning. I was like in this kind of holding area, this like waiting room. And I remember all of a sudden this guy coming to me like, okay, go now, like super, like getting my attention, super like a slap of like, just like get, like go, like right now you got to get on earth. Like, cause I could feel that in order to engage earth correctly from that time to this time, it was like now. Like right now.
Right.
So the next memory I have is being with these guys that I can only describe as technicians or tinkerers. They were these beings that are technical in nature. I don't know how to describe them other than their very nature is very almost mechanical, but in a way with consciousness technology or something. I don't know, hard to explain. And so they did this thing for me where they basically prepared the veil for me. Because the spirit has certain qualities and a certain nature, and the life and the body have certain like things going on, and they do this thing where they make it all fit for the veil. And so then I was with them in this area that I remember seeing what looked like a huge pit that I was about to dive in. That was like the final, this is it. And I remember they asked me one last time, "Are you sure that you want to do this?" Because I knew that once I said yes here, I was in for the ride. There was no going back. This is like, once you press this button, you're strapped in for the duration of the ride. You cannot get off the roller coaster, So I said yes. And so then I remember once again, the veil coming over me and this plummet in vibration, down, lower, lower still, more, lower. And this time, just trying not to fight it. Just basically just choosing to allow the experience to the best that I could, to surrender my control sufficiently. And I waited there for a while and I felt fear again, but so I sent a little ping back to the technicians. Did it take? Like, did the veil take? And getting one ping back, yes. And feeling relieved, actually, okay, I'm here now. Like I did it, I made it, and being there. So then I was there for a while. And then after a while, I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. Like, this is not happening. This is so dark. Like, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is so ridiculous. I am not subjecting myself to this. No way. So once again, I began to muster my might to fight my way out. And as I did that, the most beautiful, holy moment happened for me. This moment is the most holy moment of my whole life. I felt the Spirit of God come to me and say, that's not language, but it was like the depth of my being was shown to me again. And I felt the stars and the galaxies, and I felt all that we are, and I felt the churning bliss of the sun, and I felt the rich bliss of being and life. I don't know how else to say it. And I knew that I was all of that. And God said to me, this is still what you are. You can never not be this. So that is, it's so personal to me, but it's what we really are.
Right.
You know, we come here to be human, but we are far, far more. We have entered very, very, very deeply into this failed experience. We forget who we are. We don't have full knowledge right now. You know, we don't remember. We don't have conscious access most of the time. It seems, you know, it's very rigorous, but we don't have that access to the rest of what we are. But we still are that. And whenever I think of that, I'm just very deeply humbled, because the vastness and the beauty and the perfection of that source from which we come is beyond words. And to be known and seen by it is, anyways, I can't put words on it. It's just it's the stuff of what we are. It's the stuff of life. Okay, anyway, so that calmed me, and I was like, oh, that's still what I am. Oh, that's wonderful. Like, it relaxed me, because it was like, oh, I don't have to
Right.
fight. Okay. So I let go into the simple existence of being in the womb. And I was there for a while. And then my next memory is of being born. I remember the pain and the shock, the temperature, the touching, the lights, and having this very shocking experience, but not having any intellectual context for it at all. I had no knowledge, I had no understanding at all. But I was just experiencing something extreme, this birth event. And I have only one visual image memory of that day, and it's actually from the room, like where of the whole room, like where the bed was and where the window was and where the heating grate was. And I remember being intensely curious, like, where am I? Like, I remember looking at the nurses that were there, and, you know, the other people in the room, and I didn't know what I didn't know anything. I just knew, but I remember
Right.
feeling love for these beings. I remember being like, oh, they're taking care of me. This is beautiful. What's happening? Like, why do I hurt? What is this? Oh, what is this cold? And someone cutting my body, you know, like circumcision. I remember like, oh, that's not fun. What is that? Like, super like foreign and alien feeling.
Right.
But that was it. And after that, I don't have any memory for a while. I have some really vague memories as a baby, you know, like looking up at the dangly thing on the crib. And I remember like crying for my mother, but it wasn't until a few years later, when I was older, that I remember having this pre-birth memory, at least in pieces. And I remember assuming that everybody did, you know, like, but nobody talked about it. I mean, see, like, of course we're not from here. This is just the place we're coming to visit. You know, it's a neat experience. We're just here to have this neat experience. This is cool, you know? But I remember assuming things from the other reality would be true here. Like, for instance, I assumed that we would be able to feel each other's emotions here, because that's very normal in higher systems, that we share our feeling, we share our thinking and our being. We just, there's no room for misunderstanding. We just share what we are, and that includes feeling. And I shared this in the other videos as well, but I remember being a small child who was, you know, I don't know how old I was, but I still had a diaper on. I was old, young enough that I had a diaper, and I had just learned how to walk. And I remember my parents had a neighbor friend over to the house. And I remember the neighbor standing there in the room and asking her, watch me dance. And there was this funky music on the music player. And I remember shaking my little tush at the couch, and assuming that she would just feel as awesome and funky as I did, because I'm sharing my funkiness with her.
Right.
But she just walked away unimpressed. And it dawned on me at this moment, like, she can't feel what I'm feeling. And when I realized that, I was like, where the heck am I? Like, what is this place where we can't feel each other's emotions? What is going on? Like, this is crazy. This is very strange. And another assumption I had was, I assumed that beings of higher authority in our culture would be beings of greater love and wisdom. Because in the other systems, I mean, you know, not really that there's a great hierarchy, but there is something of a hierarchy where beings of greater love and wisdom have positions of authority and assistance and help, you know, guides. They're loving and they're wise. Well, guess what? Here, it's not necessarily how it works. I mean, I remember thinking, like, boy, if someone's teaching a classroom in a school, they must be very loving and wise. And if someone is the mayor of a city, they must be really loving and wise. And if someone is the president of the United States, they must be the most loving, wise, caring, patient person in the world. That's not how it works on earth. That's not how it
Surprise.
works here. And I feel like even today, I know, a surprise. I feel like even today as an adult, I still have to remind myself that's just like certain things. It's just not how it works on earth. We don't do
Right.
things that way. Okay, so that's a summary. Again, these things are very difficult to put into words. I feel like as the memory returns, so the memory returned to me at the age of 30 after I had taken up a long-term meditation practice.
Mhm.
And I began to have out-of-body experiences. And they were very eye-opening for me, because when you have these experiences in the non-physical, they are not subtle. Okay, they
Right.
are ridiculously more real than this. And it can be very shocking to one's worldview and
Right.
one's perspective. And so I began to have those experiences, and I didn't speak about my pre-birth memory for the first 7 or 8 years. I was around the age 30 when it returned. I didn't talk about this till about the age 38. I'm 41. My body is 41 now, because I just didn't feel like the time was right. I felt like it wouldn't be well received, and it just didn't intuitively sense that I didn't sense it was right. And also, of course, this is the kind of thing you don't really talk about if you want to be perceived, as a normal person. I'm a working professional adult.
Right.
It's the kind of thing you
Right.
don't normally share. But a few years ago, I felt intuitively, okay, the ground is fertile. The time is right. It's time to start reminding each other and sharing. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, I feel like I've been through an incredible experience with you. So thank you so much for sharing that. But this is wasn't my first question, but it makes me want to ask you,
Yeah.
since you have shared your story, have you heard from other people who say, yeah, I remember too?
Yes. I have probably heard from 40 or 50
Oh,
other
wow.
pre-birth experiencers, and some of their recollection is very similar to what I experienced. And it's so fun. I love connecting with pre-birth experiencers, because I feel like we've made it. Like we're
Right.
here, we made it this far. Look at where we are, guys. We're out in the
Right.
wilderness. Like, we're in the weeds, and we're
Right.
bumping fists a little bit. Now, people say, oh, you have so much memory. I'm so veiled. I'm so veiled. So it's so good to have that interaction with those who also have a glimmer, because there's just a resonance, a vibrational
Right.
resonance meeting those people. And I even
Right.
met one woman who said that she was listening to one of my other videos where I discussed I was talking about the veil acceptance simulator, and
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
she remembers the same thing. And she said when she heard it, she pulled off the side of the road because she could not believe she had heard someone say it. And she approached me, and I love hearing that, because I've never heard anybody else say that. I
Right.
remember it, but I've never heard anybody else talk about that. And this woman said it's exactly like that, like diving into a deep pool, and a dark pool, and you can, get out if you need. And oh my gosh, like, this is so cool to be able to have that connection and do that. See, I've probably met 40 or 50 other people, I'd say, over the last 3 years. It's
Oh,
amazing.
that it must be so validating too, to hear, to just have that, a shared experience where you can actually remember, because to talk about it and have like someone like me, I know what you're saying is right. I
Yeah.
don't know where I know that from, but I
Yeah.
know that that's correct. But to have someone actually remember it with their brain, it must be so validating to hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I mean, I suppose it is somewhat validating, but it'd be a little bit like somebody saying, if you see the sky and somebody else tells you they see the sky, now you feel validated that you've seen the sky. Like, I don't need validation, but,
Right.
because I know what I experienced. Um,
Right.
but it is really, okay. So there is a higher, bigger picture going on here that is very consistent. I relate very much to near-death experiencers, people who have died
Uh-huh.
and come back.
Uh-huh.
Um, they're far more common to interact with than
Hmm.
pre-birth memory people. And I love near-death experiencers. I feel like every time I have a conversation with an NDEer, it's like we can skip the first 20 letters of the alphabet and go straight to the end, and really engage and be authentic. And it's okay, and we can be whoever we are. Like, we don't need to be a fake. Like, if I'm feeling a certain way, I can feel. I don't need to put on a face. They don't
Right.
either.
Right.
That authenticity is beautiful. And so I love that. I love that shared meeting, because there really is a larger context going on here that is verifiable. Earth
Right.
is experiencing a lot of belief right now. We have belief systems that are very deep. I'm not knocking belief systems. Belief systems have a very important place for many people. But there is a bigger truth that transcends earthly belief. And it really is real.
Mm-hmm.
And it is personally investigatable. That's why I feel meditation is extremely, extremely helpful for that. Because what do we investigate? Well, it's not a whole bunch of new ideas like we're entertaining right now while we're listening to this video.
Mm-hmm.
We investigate our awareness itself, the consciousness itself, rigorously. Very alert investigation. No labels, no stories. Just go look. Go spend time every day without expectation, looking at your awareness itself. Over time, as you do that, the dreamlike nature of thinking will become more and more apparent. The thoughts lose their oomph.
Right.
They lose their hold. And as that happens, the ego stories begin to lose their hold, which means fears might come up, and that's okay. But as we meet everything that we actually are experiencing and everything that is actually happening, as we go closer to what is real, awareness itself, the larger parts of ourself rise up all on their own. It's not like we have to go get them. It's just what we are.
Right.
So I feel like that's a really important message, because I want to remind people that that's possible and that we are more, because the truth is beautiful and wonderful and good. Like the truth of what we are, which is not just a religious belief. It's not a fairy tale. I know it seems super distant from Earth sometimes because we are engaging in extremely low vibrational experience by comparison. But the truth is so good, so freeing, so wonderful that even a taste of it is, there is nothing to fear here on Earth. There is nothing to fear. And I've come to face fear. I face fear. I know fear. And so I don't say it lightly, because I know the deep challenge of being human. I'm not making light of that. But there is nothing to fear.
Right.
That is that is absolutely true. And that's not just a nice sounding, oh, that sounds so nice, but life is horrible. No, underneath the labels and the stories of life is horrible, or the world is so in such a state, or I am weak, or all these stories, underneath it all, the bedrock of what we are, consciousness itself, is always, always full of love and joy and freedom. And that is a beautiful thing. I went on a long tangent there, but I feel like that's
No,
just
I hope
it's an important
that people
message.
hear that. I think that's exactly right. And I hope that people take that in and really hear that for what it is, because I think that is the message, right? It's that is the message, that we are so much more than just this. There's so much more there, and so much more we're connected with. I want to go back to to some of the things, the elements of your story, Christian, because maybe it's just the way I look at it. Maybe it's also from coming from a very organized religion as a younger person. But when you first meet this being, the being that kind of inspired you to get on this journey, do you think that being was kind of like a recruiter in a way? Because I think not every spirit, and maybe this is instinctively, I think not every single spirit is maybe suited to Earth.
Yeah.
Maybe there's other ways to learn things, but it almost feels like you came across him, but it's almost like this is what we think you'd be good for this. This is what you could do, and what you could have. Do you think it was kind of like that, kind of a recruiting, kind of like you're the kind of spirit who could do well on Earth kind of thing?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. No, I was not recruited. This is long ago.
That's a loose word. I don't know.
I know what you're saying. No, he was. I was almost pestering him.
Okay.
I mean, it's not. It's so there. It's love and caring and compassion are the air itself.
Right.
So it's not truly pestering, but I'm saying that he was doing something else, and I came across him. We were with other beings as well, but he stood out, and I was persistent in my interest because of what I saw in the nature of who he was. Now, what's interesting is that, so I shared this in several videos, and this is another thing I hadn't really heard anybody talk about before, being inspired by another being. But then about a year ago, I came across a Robert Monroe video. He's a out-of-body explorer with the Monroe Institute. And he actually said something to the effect of, most of us who come here were at one point inspired by a being who has been physical, because we see what expansion is possible. And we say something like, all of 1,000 lifetimes if I have to do that. Well, I relate to that. I came across this being and I was deeply inspired to do this. Now, I do 100% agree that not all beings will choose to come to Earth.
Right.
The vast majority of spirit is, there's so many more spirits that are not engaged in Earth than there are on Earth. In fact, even just the guides that we have locally, I feel outnumber the participants in the play. We have so many characters on Earth right now. Everyone listening to this video that's physical, there may be non-physical friends listening to this, but everyone who's physical right now is playing a part of a character here on Earth. That's just a metaphor.
Right.
You're being yourself. You're being your human you. And I feel that the number of guides and friends of ours, family and friends in the non-physical, that participate in a indirect way, or maybe a slightly direct way, or helping us, they outnumber us even. And I want to point that out because, okay, so to us on Earth, it looks like, oh, there's just billions of humans. And this is, dude, having one human lifetime, the chance to play a human is the most precious, amazing, unique, just precious gift. There are so many spirits in all of creation. There's so many beings available that to be given the opportunity to play a human is out of all of creation, I'm being given the opportunity to be a human, like this human. Oh my gosh, it's the biggest honor. And so you may not think about that, whoever's listening today. And of course, I understand if you don't remember making the choice to come. But you out of every being, you were given the chance to be you, to be this physical you. Just you were given the chance. It's just the most beautiful, remarkable, precious gift. And being a human is especially unique, especially because Earth is just kind of a high value, unique. It's just a very unique, high value place. So to play a human, one of the humans, oh my goodness, wow, what an opportunity.
And when you talk about coming, the part of your story that, because I've heard you talk about your experience more than one time because it's so intriguing to me. So I've heard you talk on other shows about this. When you talk about the place we come from,
yeah,
and having all of this knowledge and all this love and all this connection, and when you come down to Earth and you're losing that and losing that and losing that, it is the most, it touches my heart in a way I can't explain. I know what you're talking about, and it just, yeah, that part of the story always just gets to me, and I can just feel it because I know that's the truth, and I know that it is. Let me ask you this: how do you, when you think of that, how do you bring whatever is missing now for that place, and how that has been kind of we've been removed from that to come here? How do you inject that into your life? What is it? What are things here that give you that little spark of, I mean, for me, it's like laughter and music. Those two things, joy and music, those things I can feel a connection, an instant connection to my true self, to that place. So what do you recognize here that we can hook into to feel that even a little bit and to remind us of where we come from?
That's a beautiful question. I really appreciate your comment, by the way, feeling that about the veil. Um, all of us know on some level, you know.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll just say to start that our true nature is love and joy and freedom. And so when we engage in something here that is of joy, we immediately and instantaneously are in a vibrational alignment with what we really are. And so that makes that bridges the gap. So to a very large extent, at least. It's hard to put this in a word because if you want to think about it like, I know this sounds abstract to those of us who are used to thinking in physical terms, but if you imagine a can, so I'll use a physical metaphor. If you imagine that the distance between there and here is like a canyon, and it's a vibrational canyon. Okay, so it's a distance in vibration. Okay, you're not actually on this side of the canyon. What's actually happening is you have voluntarily surrendered. Okay, the veil can only function with our voluntary commitment to it. It's not possible to be veiled against our will because the spirit is sovereign. It's a part of source. There's no greater authority. So it can't be veiled without an agreement. So we agree to, you might want to think of the veil as like a cloak that we wear, maybe,
Mhm.
or a spacesuit that we climb into. But unlike those physical metaphors, there's not actually a real distance. There's only a constraint that has been placed upon consciousness itself.
Okay.
You are still your consciousness itself right now. That's the key. That's like the most, it's so important. I know it sounds abstract, but you are your awareness itself. Okay, so that consciousness itself is, if you think of that as like the substance of that's what really is. That's the fundamental substrate of being, of existence.
Mhm.
And okay, so then that consciousness beholds form. So things, sensory experience, sight, sound, touch,
Right.
thoughts, ideas, perceptions, beliefs, all these things. When we entertain a perspective that is in alignment with the truth, for instance, I am loved,
Mhm.
our vibration immediately matches that perception, which is much closer. It's much closer to the other side of the canyon. On the other hand, if we entertain a belief, the world is terrible and I have no power, then we take a vibrational step and the canyon actually gets wider.
Right.
So but the thing is, it's not really there. What the veil has done is allowed us to entertain this many perspectives, because where else can you entertain this perspective of being powerless or being stuck in pain or being unworthy or whatever else? Where else can you do that other than here? So I say all that as a background to your question, because when we are already love and freedom and joy, always, always, always. We just get covered up in the gunk and all
Right.
the form association, all the pain of our lives, all the limitations, all the bodily limitations, neurological limitations, biochemical limitations. But all of that is subordinate to the spirit. And so when you as spirit then entertain an experience that is for you beautiful and loving or fun, even just fun, your vibration immediately moves back toward what you normally are, because you are now entertaining a perception that is much closer to the truth. Fearful perceptions are not ultimately true, even though so very much of the decision making we make on earth currently is based on fear, based on ego, which comes from fear. Ego
Right.
arises
Right.
from fear. We are all making decisions every day to protect ourselves and to try to get ahead of the next guy, to improve our image, and to, try to avoid the things we're afraid of and all the things. Avoid our pain, avoid our pain, avoid our pain. Just keep avoiding our pain.
Right.
We do all these things, but our true nature is always love and joy and freedom. So so the answer is, I would just say my comment to your question is, for you, whatever brings you joy, whatever you see beauty in, that brings you closer to your true spiritual nature already. But then simultaneously, so that's one. So if you're talking about something in the world, that would be my comment. But I want to say then, as a more fundamental statement, you can also investigate your awareness itself for meditation, not to go get happiness, but because happiness is what you already are. And so if you spend the time personally investigating your awareness itself, the painful form associations will gradually, you need to be able to put in the time. This doesn't happen in 5 minutes, but
Right.
gradually lose their hold on you. And beneath all that, you may find pain, but if you're willing to face and feel all things and be completely alert, you, the real you, are always down there, and you are already peace and joy and love. You don't actually need, so that what I'm saying is, you don't actually need a form. You don't actually need a thing, a person, a drug. You don't need something. You are already that. The question is, what are you buying into that you think is so proven, right? Because these negative perceptions we think are proven to us time and again over the decades. The world is obviously dark. Look at all this terrible stuff happening in the world. Our beliefs here become invisible to us so much that the world, like our beliefs reality itself looks like our beliefs. So if we believe something about the world, that's the way the world looks. But underneath that, so we put the meaning on it. But underneath all that, we are love and joy. So that was kind of a long comment, but
No, I think that's great. And I think it does keep coming back to that same message of, this is who we really are. Yeah. All of this stuff is like you said, I think that an analogy of the play, I think that works the best for me, because it's like we're all playing characters, and then we go off stage and everybody just resumes, then we are who we really are.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So it's another analogy. It is exactly like that. Another analogy is, so at night when you dream and then you wake up in the morning, well, now it's obvious that now you're in the real world and that was just a dream.
Right.
Well, that's how dying is. It's just obvious. It's so much more real. It's more lucid. You know more about yourself. That was the dream. So do you need to really get worked up? No. And while you're here in the play, guess what? We're allowed to have fun. It's just a play.
Right.
You don't have to take things too seriously. We're super serious as humans. Everything's so serious. It's actually not that serious. You can have joy and peace in all circumstance if you so choose.
And it's interesting because you talk about it, it's not so serious, not, that really everything is, it all really is well. It's okay. And when you talk about the experience of the first experience that you kind of feel like you messed up, where it had that ripple effect, you're the fetus, you're like, I'm done. And then you saw this little life that you had and the ripple effect that it had. How does that make you feel about your own words and actions? What kind of importance do you place on it in your own life? Having had that experience and knowing how the ripple effect can that is how it is. How do you how do you conduct yourself with the things you say and the things you think and the things you project onto people? Or how do you navigate that with that knowledge?
I have a lot of fear and I have a lot of ego. And so the short answer is our quality of intent is important. That's a term from Tom Campbell, the physicist and consciousness explorer. So in my own case, I try to honestly appraise the quality of my intent. Why am I doing what I'm doing right now? Why am I saying what I'm saying? Why am I doing this activity that I'm doing? Mm-hmm. But I'm not a special person. I'm deeply flawed. I mean, ask my wife. She has to tolerate many difficulties that I bring to bear. I have a lot of fear, and she has to live with that too. So I'm just saying that up front because that's just how it is. But okay, so when you were asking the question, I understand you asked it on the tail of the comment that we don't need to take things too seriously, but yet
Right.
everything we do here on Earth is important. Okay,
Right.
so those two things can seem like they're opposites, but this is a good example of, in the spiritual context, how two things can appear opposite but are both simultaneously very much true. Because of where we are in duality, it gets confusing trying to like pick, well, which one is it? Because we like A or B, hot or cold, up or down, left or right. Which one is it? It's both. All is well, and we don't have to take anything too seriously, ever. And yet it's very important what we do and how we affect each other. We are here to actualize love. We're here to be love. And that can mean all sorts of things. It's not just one type of behavior. That's the thing. Like, I think, especially in certain religious traditions, we try to codify what loving intent means. It's this thing and not that thing. You know, we always do this and we never do this. Love is much bigger than that. Love can mean all sorts of different things in all sorts of different circumstances. It can mean, in many cases, peace in the face of great violence. And sometimes it may mean standing up and taking action that may even appear violent in order to protect someone, or, you know, like, or do the best that we can in the play where we see it needs to be done. You know, we might need to choose assertiveness, or we might need to step back and accept. You know, there's a spectrum for all these kind of decisions. And one of the essays I wrote in the book is called "Loving Intent Transcends All Axes." What I mean is, in all these spectrums, should I do this or this? Should I, you know, be this way or this way? Love can operate through both, or in the
Right.
middle. And so we develop as spirits not just our ability to choose one or the other end of the spectrum, we also improve our ability to choose which end of the spectrum and when. So
Right.
we improve not only our strength in some direction, like say bravery, for instance. Say we develop our ability to face fear and to be brave in a certain context. That may be something we work on in a certain life or a series of lives, but we also work on, you know, when to choose to what's the word I'm looking for? Deploy or something, or to bring forward that quality, you know, to use that quality. So discernment is the other big thing that we're working to do. And what discernment am I talking about? Not just discernment about looking at things whether in the correct way. I'm talking about a discernment of intention.
Right.
You know, what intention are we bringing to bear in this certain circumstance? The good news is, this is so important in the context of your question. The quality of our intention in the smallest moment is what matters, is what's so powerful. The ability to, it may appear to be such a small, tiny, tiny thing on the earth's surface, but to the spirit, to bring love to bear and or to face one's fears, or to face one's grief, or to face one's, you know, addiction, or whatever other thing that we're here to deal with in the smallest way, to improve ourselves in the smallest way, is incredibly powerful. And those are the celebrated moments of our lives. It's not how many objects we moved around or how much money we made, or, you know, like, none of that's going to matter. And that's all play. It's play content. You know, it's props on the stage. What matters is, who are you? What have you done in the simple moment? And it does not have to be physically moving a mountain. There's a beautiful near-death experience. I forget who this was, but there was a gentleman who shared that he had an NDE and he died, and he had a life review, and he became aware that one of the most celebrated moments of his entire life was when he was a child. He was on a road trip with his family, and they stopped at some rest stop, and his parents asked him to go down to this river nearby and get a bucket of water because they didn't have water. And so he was carrying this bucket of water back to the car, and he decided to go out of his way to water a dry tree and to let some of the water off out of his way. So it took him a little bit of effort. He watered this tree, brought the bucket up to his parents, never thought of it again. That was the most beautiful celebrated moment of his life, because he did it out of love and selflessness and just joy, not because there was no way that he could benefit. In fact, it was a little bit difficult for him, and he did it anyway.
Right.
Similarly here, and you can be a paraplegic in your own bed. You can't move a finger, but you are a powerful spirit. It doesn't matter that you can't move a finger. That's a play. It's not really what you are. What you are is the beautiful consciousness who is in this experience now, who gets to choose. Can you meet this with love and openness and acceptance right now, the smallest moment? That is where the power is. The small, beautiful moments of just meeting our own fear, choosing compassion, choosing vulnerability, choosing to own our own crap in a simple way. That is where the rubber meets the road. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I think for everybody, that is going to mean something different. For everybody, that means something different. For some people, I mean, it depends on what we're here to face and what our challenges are. Everybody has different challenges. We look like everybody looks all like we're all together on the surface. Most people have a lot of pain going on. How do you meet that pain? How do you honor yourself? How do you honor the person next to you? How do you decide? How do you identify when your intention is not the best it can be? And how do you choose joy in the midst of this context? Are you so calloused over by life that you can't dance with the child who's playing next to you any longer? Or can you dance? And those are the beautiful choices, because what survives is spirit, which is consciousness. The context goes away. It's going to be gone. But what you retain is the experience and in the choices you made while you were here. What kind of choices did you make? And it's not about the size of the context, it's about the quality of even the smallest choices.
I love that, Christian. And I love that. But I want to kind of just wrap this up in kind of a bigger spiritual question way, I guess, and ask you, so I told you about the way, and everybody that is watching this knows how I started the channel and started this journey for myself in this direction. Yeah. And we're here having this conversation, and you've talked to other people. What is happening? What is it? What is happening with all of this? It seems so in such a very, to me, a very, maybe the last 20 years where it's almost like we're allowed to have all this information on the earth now, or it's coming to us in different, what do you think is happening? Yeah. As far as is the earth ready for it? Is it, do you think it's a planned kind of, okay, and we're going to just have more spirit energy here now, or we're going to have more communication, or are there just more people here that have done this so many times that they're not that surprised anymore by the fact that there is more to this? They just kind of instinctively know because we've been here so many times now. What is going on? What do you think is going on?
Well, I think that the humankind, collective consciousness, is going through what we call the awakening. It's just a term. But basically, so each one of us is a part of the collective consciousness of humanity, which is a group, but it's also its own thing. And the collective consciousness goes through certain high level, call it acts of the play. And we entertain certain types of experience for certain durations, which on Earth may seem like very long durations. And we're at a point now where we are shifting, and we are attempting to, we're reaching to a higher vibration as a collective. But in order to do that, it means a lot of the old crap that we have been very deeply associated with for a long time has to be faced and felt and healed. So the collective consciousness of humanity has built up a lot of thought momentum. What I mean by that is in the astral and higher realms, thoughts are like physical. They're like objects that you can go interact with. And so when you've got thousands of years of humans thinking one thing, there's a lot of thought momentum in that direction. And so we are dealing with the historical momentum of the species and the earth. And that whole sea has a lot of very low vibration, previously entertained experiences and perceptions in it. A lot of very old beliefs that are just deeply rooted within us. Like take one, for instance, that's very dear in my heart, racism. So racism is an example. Racism is just an example of it's a simple ego trick of believing in validating the self by validating one's group and at the expense of others. It's very simple. And it's a reflection of fear. And so that's just one example of a pattern that is in the collective consciousness of humanity that we are in the process of undoing. And in order to undo it, the higher vibrational energies that come in tend to prompt us to face that crap. And it means that there can be some strong last hurrahs. I personally feel we've experienced some of that in the United States in the last 5 years. And that happens because there's still a lot of people that hold on to those beliefs that have a lot of thought momentum. So there are non-physical beings helping us to bring higher energy into this system, and but there's friction as that happens, because now we need to actually what's the word? Now the rubber has to meet the road. Right? Because now that the higher vibration is here, we either are gonna grow, which means face our own fear and grow towards love, or not. Now, who's growing? It's super important. Individuals. We're talking about the collective. It's individuals. It's every person listening right now and everybody else, one at a time, doing their best to meet this experience with love rather than fear and ego and the belief that rises out of ego. It's an individual process. I'm a fan of the quote. I forget the exact words, but at first I was clever, so I tried to change the world. Now I'm wise, so I changed myself, something like that. The idea is that you don't have to worry about anybody else. You simply choose how you meet your experience and how you interact with those around you. And most of us have a lot more fear than we're willing to admit. So there is a lot of work for each individual to do, typically. Right. But the good news is one person who awakens, one person who discovers who they are, who meets their own crack, who really is authentic, even for a time, is much more powerful than many who are lost in the dream of fearful thoughts. An awakened person is powerful in the collective consciousness. It's like a beacon of light in the sea that attracts others. Like if you imagine a big pool of water and there's like lights going on or something, right? The more that go on, the more the rest of them say like, oh, look, the lights are changing. Even though may not be consciously aware of it, it gives permission to everybody else. And an individual who is awakened tends to shine very brightly and has more power, because love is the true power. Fear has no real power. Love has incredible power, even if you physically can't do anything at all. So as we choose love and try to bring love into our personal experience, we help bring that vibration of love into this place, and the collective will grow. I personally am very hopeful. Like I know a lot of people are very fearful about the prospects and what appears on the surface. I actually feel that the vibration is increasing and we are doing better. And I have a lot of hope for our goal, our destination. And it may not happen in like a year, but it doesn't need to happen in a human lifetime. We're not one lifetime anyway.
Right. That's right. And I think a lot of people, that is the thing right there. That ego side of us we want to see it all. We want it to happen right now and see it all, all of these, wonderful things happen. But you're right. We're so linear. We think of such time restraints for everything. So, but you're right and I think that is what ultimately is like, it's all okay, because this is all happening and it will happen in its own time, but this is what's happening. And you're right. We have time to do it. It's okay. Yeah. So Christian, your book is A Walk in the Physical. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read it. But tell me where else people can find you, what other stuff you're doing, other things where they can find you.
Sure. So I have a website, awalkinthephysical.com. It's been my blog site for years. There is a page on the site for the book. The book is available for free online. On the book page, there's the third link down is a link to a Google Books entry for the entire book. You just click read for free, I think is the button, and the whole book is there. I think it's very important that we share this information. It's not about money. It's just, I really want to share. The book is something that I feel is important. So I worked with spirit over the years and brought forth chunks at a time. I mean, I technically wrote the book, but I feel like it was very much spirit led. And it's very non-linear. I've tried to create basically a reality model that is encouraging and helps remind the individual of what they already know. I have nothing new to give, but I can at least provide a framework for exploration. And I think that that's something that is important. So, yeah, that's the idea behind the book. I feel like, to be honest, the book is my life's work. I feel that I just knew I had to get it into the physical. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't have any expectations. I just know that I needed to make it physical in the way that it is now. And I'm happy and honored to do that. As for how to contact me, my email is awalkinthephysical@gmail.com. You can also reach out on Facebook if you'd like to talk. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And yeah, we need to be there and just encourage each other. I mean, all of us are brothers and sisters walking on the path. Like, I'm not a special person. I'm just another wilderness journeyer, but I'm happy to greet you on the path, and we can talk about the weeds. We're both in the weeds right now. But just as a closing thought, I just want to say, so for whoever's listening right now, please do be reminded that you are loved. You are a loving, loved, beautiful, precious, powerful being. And you specifically, not just like a super general love, but like, you are known and you are loved, and there is nothing to fear. And I hope that you can be reminded of that as you go about your daily life, which is important and meaningful. You're performing a great service today by being human and walking the human journey. So thank you for doing that. I'm sure it's been a while since someone thanked you for being human, but thank you for being human, even though you don't remember anything else. Thank you for being human, and don't take it too seriously. Just have fun, right. and do your best to love those around you, and to love yourself, and to engage the beauty of the world. Just do that, and it's a beautiful, powerful thing. This is an opportunity. I mean, we are in the opportunity right now. Like, this moment is the opportunity. We've come all this way. Like, everyone who's listening today, you've come a really long way. Like, through all your physical life, from journeys that you can't even remember to now. What will we do with it?
Right.
Yeah.
Make it count, but don't take it too seriously.
Yeah. Make it count in a joyful way. Be yourself, be authentic, because when we are ourselves, it's joyful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Christian. I just
Thank you so much
appreciate
for having me
really
on the show. Thank you. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Christian. I will talk to you again soon. And yeah, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.